Welcome to MOBILTYONE Merchant Training for My Debit Operational Procedure version 1.6. By end of this video, we hope our existing merchants will receive full information regarding this My Debit Op version 1.6. The first topic is My Debit Service. The company is a participant of the My Debit Service, hereinafter referred to as the acquirer, and the merchant is a registered merchant under the My Debit Service. In consideration to the fees paid to the acquirer agrees to facilitate the participation of the merchant in the My Debit Service in accordance with this agreement. The merchant hereby agrees to observe all the minimum requirements in this agreement as specified by the My Debit operator, including any future revisions which will be communicated by the acquirer to the merchant. Let's go to the second topic, which is payment type. The merchant shall support My Debit transactions that enables cardholders to use their ATM cards to pay directly from their bank account via host terminal and a dual interface which supports both contact and contactless transactions. We move to the third topic, obligations of merchant. The merchant shall at all times comply to the Consumer Protection Act 1999 as the merchant is prohibited to engage in misleading and deceptive conduct, false misrepresentation and unfair claims in selling their products or services. The merchant is prohibited from reselling or acquiring any other sub-merchants into the My Debit service or act as merchant aggregators for other merchants without the prior written consent of the My Debit operator and acquirer. The merchants are not allowed to set a purchase limit. The merchant shall ensure that it does not impose any surcharge on a transaction made using My Debit. Merchants shall execute the merchant's opt-out from lowest cost routing declaration in Appendix 4 of the operational procedures for My Debit through the acquirer by furnishing all necessary information completely and accurately. Merchants need to open an account for the purpose of the transfer of funds to the merchant. Merchants are prohibited from retaining any My Debit cards belonging to the cardholders. The merchant shall not capture any of the My Debit cards at their terminals or kiosks at any point in time. In the event that the My Debit cards are captured due to technical reasons or any other reasons, the merchant shall undertake to return their cards to the acquirer for onward submission to the issuer bank within 24 hours. The merchant shall take all reasonable actions necessary to ensure that all terminals and PIN pads operated at their premises are available for use by cardholders during My Debit switch operating hours and that terminals and PIN pads are utilized and have complied with the requirements set in the operational procedures for My Debit. The merchant shall comply with the My Debit brand guidelines at all times. The merchant shall prominently display My Debit logo and My Debit service marks and to inform the public that My Debit service is available at the merchant's premises and or on all documentation issued and or used in connection with the provision of the services in order to identify and or used in connection with the provision of the services in order to identify and promote My Debit service. Merchant need to assist the issuer and or the acquirer with any inquiry undertaken in respect of the misuse of the My Debit service. Merchants need to accept and honor all My Debit cards when presented to cardholders at any terminal displaying the logo, provide the goods and services on the same terms and conditions as those under which it supplies goods and services to person purchasing goods and services by means other than by the My Debit cards. Merchants need to ensure the confidentiality and security of personal identification number PIN entered at the terminal. Merchants need to ensure that each sales and purchases transaction is confirmed by the cardholder in a manner applicable to the terminal. Merchants should operate the terminal in accordance with the acquirer's direction and or instruction. Merchant is prohibited to misuse or tamper with the terminal in any way. Merchant must notify the acquirer of the terminal failure within 2 business days after becoming aware of the failure of the terminal. The merchant must not make any warranties nor representations in respect of the goods and services supplied which may bind the acquirer, My Debit operator, issuer or any other participants in the My Debit service. Merchant will be liable for any claims, damages and expenses arising out of or cause to arise from the misuse or unauthorized usage of the My Debit brand. In the event of such breach of this agreement shall be terminated accordingly. Upon termination, clause 6.4 shall apply accordingly. The merchant shall consent and allow the acquirer to disclose its information to My Debit operator as may be reasonably required for the purpose of and in connection with providing the My Debit service. The merchant shall ensure that their customers are aware that card payments can be made via My Debit. Clause 3.20 herein shall survive termination of this agreement. Termination does not affect either party's right occurred and obligations incurred before termination. Now we move on to topic number 4, which is advertisement and use of logo. The My Debit operator owns all rights and titles and interests in the My Debit brand, and the My Debit operator and or the acquirer may specify and may at any time amend the requirements relating to the use and or display of the My Debit brand. The merchant shall comply with the requirements, process and or guidelines prescribed by the My Debit operator based on the My Debit brand guidelines. The merchant must use the appropriate denotation or legend of trademark registration of ownership in connection with the My Debit brand as required and consented to by the My Debit operator and or the acquirer. The merchant shall only use the My Debit brand for the sole purposes of publicizing, indicating and advertising that the merchant accepts payment requests through the My Debit service. The My Debit operator and or acquirer have the right to direct the merchant to make changes to their use of the My Debit brand to rectify and non-compliance or potential non-compliance. The My Debit operator through the acquirer may at any time in its absolute discretion direct a merchant to cease using the My Debit brand when such use is in breach of this agreement or the terms in the operational procedures for the My Debit which is applicable to the merchant as stipulated in this agreement. The merchant must not use the My Debit brand in such a way to create an impression that the goods or services offered by the merchant are sponsored, produced, offered or sold by the owner of the My Debit brand. The merchant must not adopt My Debit or any other My Debit brand as a part of the name of its business or apply it to any goods and services offered for sale. The merchant must immediately become aware of any infringement or potential infringement of the My Debit brand, notify the required. Next to talk about is the acceptance of mark usage in this topic 5. Accurate and consistent usage. Accurate and consistent use of the acceptance mark heightens brand visibility, stimulates card use, and strengthens brand recognition. All locations that accept My Debit must always prominently display the acceptance mark so that it is clearly visible to the public. This will include all point of purchase where My Debit is accepted, including physical locations, websites, mail order forms, and etc. At physical merchant locations, prominent signage at the customer entrance such as on the front door, adjacent window, and or external signage is preferred. Communicating acceptance with interior signage. While the cardholder's first visual indication of acceptance may be via exterior signage, it also requires to display the acceptance mark at the point of purchase to encourage acceptance of My Debit. Point of purchase example includes cash, register, dental strips, can cards, restaurant money trays, and restaurant check holders. Merchants shall not take any action against the company or the card association, PayNet, the bank, and the e-money issuer to interfere with their rights as mentioned in this agreement. Restrict customer in any way from using any company payment system at any of the sales channel, including establishing or changing a minimum or maximum purchase amount for customer to make purchase of products using company payment system. Change any additional ancillary service fees to any customer for using company payment system to make any purchase of product.